In the unforgiving territory of Wyoming, where winter could kill the unprepared and charity was scarce as hen's teeth, one woman's quiet dignity in the face of desperate circumstances would awaken something powerful in a bachelor rancher's heart. What began as temporary shelter in a barn became a testament to the kind of love that builds homes with calloused hands and unwavering determination. When Clara Mitchell lost everything to her husband's gambling debts and found herself sleeping in hay alongside the animals, she never imagined that her graceful acceptance of hardship would inspire someone to literally build her a new life from the ground up. Sometimes the greatest acts of love require no words, only the willingness to work until your hands bleed for someone else's happiness. This is the incredible true story of how one man's compassion took the form of timber and nails, proving that some promises are kept not with speeches but with sweat, and that the strongest foundations are built on love willing to work for what it believes in. Ready for a story that will restore your faith in quiet heroes? Hit that like button if you believe actions speak louder than words. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because tales like this prove that real love builds lasting foundations. Drop a comment about someone who showed love through their work. I read every single one. The year was 1882, and Clara Mitchell had been sleeping in Benjamin Carter's barn for 3 weeks when the first snows of winter began falling across the Wind River Valley, transforming her temporary refuge into what looked increasingly like a permanent arrangement that challenged her dignity while testing the bachelor rancher's commitment to Christian charity. Her circumstances had deteriorated from respectability to desperation with shocking speed, leaving her dependent on kindness from a man she barely knew. Clara's husband, Thomas, had died suddenly of heart failure in September, leaving behind gambling debts that consumed their homestead, livestock, and every possession of value they had accumulated during 5 years of marriage. The creditors had been swift and merciless in collecting what they were owed, forcing Clara from her comfortable home into homelessness that seemed impossible for someone who had been a respected member of the community just months earlier. Benjamin Carter's offer of shelter in his barn had been made reluctantly, his natural compassion warring with practical concerns about housing a woman whose presence would inevitably create gossip and complications he had successfully avoided during 10 years of bachelor ranching. His initial intention had been to provide temporary assistance until Clara could make other arrangements. But suitable alternatives had proven non-existent in territory where single women faced limited options. The barn shelter that Clara had gratefully accepted was more comfortable than sleeping outdoors, but far below the standard of living she had known as a rancher's wife, her makeshift bed among the hay bales and farm equipment representing a fall from grace that tested her ability to maintain dignity under circumstances that would have broken lesser spirits. Her quiet acceptance of hardship impressed Benjamin with its grace and determination. Clara's daily routine of caring for Benjamin's animals and maintaining his barn demonstrated her commitment to earning her shelter through useful work rather than accepting charity without contribution. Her efforts to make herself valuable, revealing pride that had survived financial disaster. Her competence with livestock and farm management showed skills that had been developed during her marriage to a man who had valued her partnership as well as her companionship. Benjamin's growing awareness of Clara's situation created internal conflict between his desire to help and his concern about impropriety that could damage both their reputations in a community where unmarried men and women living in proximity created scandal regardless of circumstances or intentions. His struggle with social expectations and personal compassion made him increasingly uncomfortable with arrangements that seemed inadequate for someone of Clara's obvious quality and character. The harsh realities of barn life became apparent as autumn temperatures dropped and Clara's makeshift shelter proved inadequate for protection against weather that would grow steadily worse throughout the winter months ahead. Her visible discomfort during cold nights made Benjamin realize that his temporary solution was becoming a long-term hardship that could threaten her health and safety if not addressed through more substantial arrangements. Clara's refusal to complain about her circumstances or to hint at her need for better shelter demonstrated the kind of stoic pride that Benjamin respected, while making him feel increasingly guilty about allowing someone of her character to suffer unnecessarily. Her dignity in adversity revealed strength that impressed him more than any display of wealth or social position could have accomplished. Benjamin's observations of Clara's daily struggles with maintaining cleanliness, privacy, and basic comfort in barn quarters designed for animals rather than humans made him understand that his charitable gesture was inadequate for someone whose circumstances resulted from tragedy rather than personal failure. Her obvious discomfort became a source of growing concern that demanded more substantial response than temporary expedience. The turning point in Benjamin's thinking came when he found Clara crying quietly one evening after a particularly difficult day, her tears representing the first crack in the dignified composure she had maintained throughout weeks of hardship. Her moment of vulnerability revealed the emotional cost of maintaining strength in circumstances that would have defeated most people, making him realize that temporary charity was insufficient for permanent problems. Clara's embarrassment at being discovered in tears demonstrated her commitment to maintaining dignity, despite circumstances that tested every limit of endurance and self-respect. Her apology for showing weakness, revealing character that viewed emotional displays as failures rather than natural responses to overwhelming challenges. Her strength impressed Benjamin, while making him feel inadequate as someone who had provided shelter without real security. Benjamin's decision to build Clara a proper house was reached through recognition that temporary measures were insufficient for permanent problems. His growing respect for her character making him want to provide security worthy of someone who had faced disaster with such grace. His commitment represented more than charity, involving personal investment of time and labor that demonstrated genuine care for her welfare. The announcement of Benjamin's construction plans shocked Clara with its generosity, while creating anxiety about accepting assistance that went far beyond normal charitable obligation. Her protests about the expense and effort involved revealing both gratitude and concern about creating debts she could never repay. Her reluctance to accept such help demonstrated pride that had survived financial ruin while making her more worthy of the assistance being offered. Benjamin's insistence that building Clara a house was both practical necessity and personal desire rather than burdensome obligation helped overcome her resistance while establishing the project as mutual benefit rather than one-sided charity. His explanation that her presence had already improved his life through companionship and assistance made the construction seem like fair exchange rather than unprecedented generosity that created uncomfortable obligations. The construction of Clara's house began with Benjamin's dawn-to-dusk labor that continued after his regular ranch duties were completed. His determination to provide her with proper shelter, driving him to work with intensity that impressed even experienced carpenters who observed his progress. Every board he cut and every nail he drove represented commitment that went far beyond obligation to encompass genuine devotion to her welfare and happiness. Benjamin's refusal of assistance from neighbors who offered to help with the construction demonstrated his desire to build Clara's house with his own hands as expression of personal commitment rather than community project. His insistence on doing the work himself revealing depths of feeling that surprised him with their intensity. The physical labor became a form of prayer and declaration of intentions he hadn't yet found courage to voice directly. Clara's daily observation of Benjamin's exhausting work schedule filled her with gratitude that deepened into affection as she recognized the sacrifice he was making for her comfort and security, his willingness to work beyond his limits, demonstrating character that made her understand why she had been blessed with such protection during her darkest hour. Her feelings evolved from appreciation to something approaching love as she watched him literally build her future. The house took shape with remarkable speed, despite Benjamin's insistence on quality construction that would provide Clara with security and comfort for years to come. His attention to details like proper insulation, solid foundations, and attractive finishes revealing his desire to create not just shelter, but a real home worthy of someone he had come to treasure. Every element reflected his growing love for the woman he was protecting. Clara's gradual participation in planning and decorating her new home created partnership that brought them closer together, while allowing her to contribute to a project that represented her future security and independence. Their collaboration on decisions about layout, materials, and furnishings revealed compatibility that extended beyond their current circumstances to encompass shared vision for comfortable domestic life. The community's reaction to Benjamin's house-building project was mixed between admiration for his generosity and speculation about his motives, with some recognizing genuine compassion while others suspected romantic intentions that would transform charity into courtship. The quality and size of the house he was building suggested permanent arrangements rather than temporary assistance, making his intentions a subject of considerable gossip and interest. Benjamin's physical exhaustion from working double duties became visible as the construction progressed, his determination to complete Clara's house quickly taking a toll on his health that concerned her despite her gratitude for his efforts. Her worry about his welfare demonstrated caring that had developed beyond simple appreciation for assistance, revealing emotional investment that matched his own growing attachment to her happiness and security. Clara's attempts to ease Benjamin's burden by taking over more of his ranch duties while he focused on construction created partnership that felt increasingly natural to both of them, their cooperation revealing compatibility that suggested possibilities beyond the current arrangement of benefactor and grateful recipient. Their working relationship was evolving into something that resembled marriage in all but name and legal status. The technical challenges of construction provided opportunities for Clara to demonstrate intelligence and problem-solving abilities that impressed Benjamin, while making him realize that her contributions to the project were valuable rather than merely symbolic. Her suggestions about design and materials proved practical and cost-effective, validating his growing conviction that she was someone worth building a future with rather than simply helping through temporary crisis. Benjamin's growing recognition that he was building Clara's house as much for his own happiness as for her security represented acknowledgement of feelings that had developed beyond charity into genuine romantic attachment, his labor becoming expression of love rather than obligation. The construction project was transforming both their lives in ways that neither had anticipated when the arrangement began as temporary assistance. Clara's own realization that she looked forward to Benjamin's evening visits after work more than to the progress on her house revealed that her feelings had evolved beyond gratitude into affection that made their separation seem increasingly undesirable. Her emotional investment in their daily interactions was becoming stronger than her practical appreciation for the security he was providing through his construction efforts. The intimate conversations that filled their evenings while Benjamin recovered from his daily labor created emotional connection that made both question whether their arrangement needed to remain temporary once Clara's house was completed. Their compatibility in all areas except official status suggested possibilities that neither had dared consider when their relationship began as straightforward charity between strangers. Benjamin's realization that completing Clara's house would end their daily contact unless they chose a different arrangement forced him to confront feelings that had grown beyond compassion into love that demanded expression through commitment rather than continued charity. His construction project was nearing completion, making decisions about their future relationship increasingly urgent and necessary. Clara's recognition that Benjamin's house building represented more than generous assistance helped her understand that his feelings matched her own growing attachment to someone whose character had been proven through actions rather than words. The home he was creating for her was also becoming the foundation for a relationship that had evolved far beyond its origins in desperate need and reluctant charity. The final stages of construction brought Benjamin and Clara to daily collaboration on details that revealed their shared vision for domestic life. Their decisions about furnishings and arrangements demonstrating compatibility that extended far beyond current circumstances to encompass hopes for permanent partnership. Every choice they made together strengthened the foundation for a relationship that had grown beyond charity into genuine love and mutual respect. Benjamin's completion of Clara's house after 2 months of intensive labor represented more than construction achievement. It was physical manifestation of devotion that had transformed both their lives while creating something beautiful from circumstances that had begun in desperation and temporary expedience. The finished home stood as testament to what love could accomplish when expressed through dedicated work rather than empty promises. Clara's emotional response to seeing her completed house revealed gratitude so profound it overwhelmed her carefully maintained composure. Her tears of joy and amazement demonstrating how much Benjamin's sacrifice had meant to someone who had lost everything and found hope through one man's willingness to work for her welfare. Her reaction validated every hour of labor he had invested in creating security worthy of her character. The house that Benjamin had built exceeded Clara's most optimistic expectations for comfort and quality. His attention to details like built-in storage, proper ventilation, and attractive woodwork, revealing craftsmanship that transformed necessity into artistry. Every room reflected his desire to provide not just shelter, but a real home where she could rebuild her life with dignity and security. Benjamin's reluctance to accept Clara's thanks for his construction work revealed humility that had characterized his entire approach to helping her, his insistence that building the house had been its own reward, demonstrating character that valued service over recognition. His selfless attitude about the sacrifice he had made impressed Clara while making her love him more deeply for his genuine goodness and lack of expectation for gratitude. The community's response to the completed house was universally positive, as neighbors recognized both the quality of Benjamin's workmanship and the generosity that had motivated such an extensive project for someone who couldn't repay him through conventional means. Their admiration for his character and construction skills enhanced his reputation while validating Clara's worth as someone deserving of such exceptional assistance. Clara's invitation for Benjamin to share dinner in her new home represented the first time they had been together in proper domestic setting, rather than makeshift barn arrangements. Their meal together revealing how naturally they functioned as a partnership when circumstances allowed normal interaction. The comfort and compatibility they displayed suggested possibilities that both had been thinking about, but neither had dared voice directly. The conversation during their dinner together touched on future plans and possibilities that made both Benjamin and Clara acknowledge feelings that had developed during the house construction process, their mutual attraction and compatibility becoming impossible to ignore in the intimate setting he had created for her comfort. Their emotional connection had grown alongside the physical structure he had built with such dedication. Benjamin's confession that building Clara's house had been motivated by love rather than simple charity came naturally as they sat together in the home he had created, his admission revealing feelings that his actions had already demonstrated through months of devoted labor. His verbal declaration simply confirmed what both had understood through his willingness to sacrifice so much for her welfare and happiness. Clara's response to Benjamin's declaration was acceptance that had been building throughout the construction process, her own feelings having evolved from gratitude to genuine love for someone whose character had been proven through actions rather than words. Her admission that she loved him too created mutual understanding that transformed their relationship from charity arrangement to romantic partnership based on proven compatibility and commitment. The decision to marry was reached through mutual recognition that their feelings and compatibility made permanent partnership both desirable and logical, their relationship having been tested through circumstances that revealed character more thoroughly than conventional courtship could have accomplished. Their love had been built through shared challenges rather than superficial attraction, creating foundation for lasting happiness. Benjamin's proposal was accomplished in the house he had built for Clara, his offer of marriage representing the natural culmination of devotion that had already been demonstrated through months of labor and sacrifice on her behalf. The setting made his proposal especially meaningful, as he was asking her to share permanently the home he had created specifically for her comfort and security. Clara's acceptance came with joy that reflected both her love for Benjamin and her amazement at how completely her circumstances had been transformed through one man's willingness to work for her welfare, her gratitude extending beyond personal happiness to encompass wonder at the redemption that had emerged from disaster. Their engagement celebrated triumph over circumstances that had seemed hopeless just months earlier. The wedding preparations took place in the house Benjamin had built, with Clara decorating their future home while he completed final details that would make their domestic life comfortable and secure. Their collaboration on these arrangements demonstrated partnership that had already developed during the construction process, making their transition to married life natural rather than dramatic change in their relationship. The wedding of Benjamin Carter and Clara Mitchell took place in the house he had built for her, the ceremony celebrating not just their union, but the triumph of love expressed through practical action over circumstances that had seemed impossible to overcome through individual effort. Their home became the foundation for a marriage built on proven commitment and mutual respect that had been tested through adversity. Their first child was born in the bedroom Benjamin had carefully constructed, with extra attention to comfort and safety, the birth representing completion of the family he had envisioned while building Clara's house. The baby's arrival in the home, created through love, validated every hour of labor and every sacrifice that had gone into providing security for the woman who had become the center of his world. Clara's transformation from homeless widow to respected rancher's wife demonstrated how individual acts of compassion could change entire life trajectories when supported by genuine commitment and willingness to work for others' welfare. Her story proving that circumstances could be overcome through the assistance of people willing to invest personal effort in others' success and happiness. The legacy of Benjamin's house-building sacrifice became part of local folklore as an example of how love could be expressed through practical action that created lasting foundations for happiness. His willingness to work beyond his limits for Clara's welfare, inspiring other community members to recognize opportunities for service that demonstrated genuine care for neighbors facing difficult circumstances through no fault of their own. Their marriage prospered as Clara's management skills complemented Benjamin's ranching expertise, their partnership creating success that validated the foundation of mutual respect and shared labor that had brought them together. The house he had built became the center of a thriving operation that demonstrated what could be accomplished when people combined their strengths rather than working alone. The children who grew up in Benjamin's hand-built house learned from their parents' example that love was best expressed through actions rather than words. Their family demonstrating values of hard work and compassion that influenced the entire community. Clara and Benjamin's marriage became a model of how genuine partnership could create prosperity and happiness from the foundation of mutual service and respect. Benjamin's construction skills were put to use building homes for other families in need, as word spread about his quality workmanship and generous spirit, his reputation growing from Clara's testimony about his character and capabilities. His willingness to help others demonstrated that his assistance to Clara had reflected genuine compassion rather than isolated romantic gesture. Clara's role as Rancher's wife allowed her to help other women facing difficult circumstances, similar to those she had experienced, her story providing hope and practical assistance for people who had lost everything through tragedy or misfortune. Her example proved that desperate situations could be overcome through accepting help when it was offered and working to rebuild rather than surrendering to despair. The community respect that Benjamin and Clara earned through their marriage and their service to others validated their decision to build their relationship on practical foundations rather than romantic idealism. Their success demonstrating that lasting love required both emotional connection and shared commitment to working for each other's welfare and happiness through whatever challenges life might present. The house that had begun as Benjamin's charitable project for a homeless widow became the symbol of how love could transform desperate circumstances into lasting happiness when supported by willingness to work for others' welfare without expectation of reward. Their home stood as proof that the strongest foundations were built through devoted labor rather than grand gestures or empty promises. The ranch that flourished under Benjamin and Clara's partnership provided security for their growing family while serving as example of how mutual respect and shared labor could create prosperity that benefited the entire community through their success. Their story proved that helping others ultimately helped oneself when motivated by genuine compassion rather than expectation of personal benefit. Years later, when Clara watched their children playing in the yard of the house Benjamin had built with his own hands, she reflected on the journey that had brought them from desperate strangers to devoted partners whose love had created lasting foundations for happiness. Their marriage proved that sometimes the greatest gifts came disguised as opportunities to serve others through practical action. Benjamin's reflection on their life together confirmed his understanding that building Clara's house had been the best investment he had ever made, not because of any material return, but because her love and partnership had enriched his life beyond anything he could have achieved alone. Their home had become the foundation for happiness he had never imagined possible during his years of bachelor isolation. The legacy of their love story continued through children who inherited both parents' understanding that genuine affection was expressed through willingness to work for others' welfare, their family demonstrating values that influenced the community for generations, while proving that the strongest homes were built on foundations of practical love rather than romantic sentiment alone.